So let's go back and talk about Void Rivals issue number 1. Of course, you know the deal. This is your creative team. And the way we start out is an aircraft that crash lands on this planetoid. Don't ask me the difference between a planet and a planetoid, but that's what they call it. And out comes this pilot who's barely surviving, but this hand droid or android glove that he wears helps him to get to the first aid kit. And as you can probably imagine, because this is a comic book, the ship is shot and he's stranded. So our pilot's name is Derek, and he's what they call an Angorian. And although things look bad, at least there are no Zertonians who are their natural enemies in the area. Or at least he thinks that until a Zertonian ambushes him and they have a one-on-one knockdown drag out, as Angorians and Zertonians usually do. However, for the time being, cooler heads eventually prevail because they're both stranded on this planetoid, and they're both probably not going to make it if they can't get off the planetoid. But this doesn't mean they automatically trust each other. As you can see, while they're trying to use both of their ships to try to salvage one good ship, they still don't trust each other. And this is when the Zertonian tells Derek that her name is Celila. This is important because they're not supposed to know each other's names. And while both of their ships are now toast, they discover a third ship that looks like it's been here for a while. But this third ship is no ship at all. This third ship is Jetfire from the Transformers. But Jetfire isn't going to be here for long either. He has to get back to Cybertron. He's been here for thousands of years, and he doesn't even know that a war has happened. If you really want to know why, check out Transformers issue 13. And just like that, there goes Jetfire, but Jetfire does give them some ideas. I'm not going to try to explain the technology in their suits and helmet, but Derek thinks that the technology in their helmets could be the key to getting their ship started and getting off the planetoid. There's only one problem. If there's a rule more important than them not sharing their names with each other, they're not supposed to see each other's faces. But why is it so important for these two warring factions, these two civilizations, not to see each other's faces? Because they're not different civilizations. They are essentially the same people, with slight differences. But the interesting thing is that Derek kind of already knew this because he had a vision. Void Rivals issue number 2. And we start issue number 2 with a flashback where our pilot Derek of the Agorians has been given a mission to go from their planet to the Sacred Ring. What is the Sacred Ring? We'll talk about it. They also take this opportunity to introduce us to Minister Dulon, who is Derek's father, and let's just say they don't always see eye to eye. The mission that Derek is on is to go to the Sacred Ring and retrieve like this huge amount of ice because the Zertonians are low on water, and like I said, two warring civilizations. But while we're on the way, he is having visions that catch us up on the history of this war. And those visions persist the closer and closer he gets, which is why the Handroid is having a hard time waking him up. And this is when we fast forward to present day, where Derek and Celila, the Zertonian, are stuck on this planetoid and trying to get off using the technology in their helmets. But they're still trying to get used to each other, being from warring civilizations and all. However, this was not a short process. You see, we're 20 days in before they actually figure out how to get that ship up and running. But the trip back home is not going to be some short, uneventful trip, because they're going to run into trouble right off the bat as they get picked up by another ship, which looks like a big asteroid, but they get picked up by Scuzoid, this character from the Transformers franchise. And that is how we're going to leave off of issue number 2 of Void Rivals. But then we jump right into issue number 3 of Void Rivals, where Derek and Celila fight Scuzoid back. And although I remember this character being on Transformers, I don't remember a whole lot about him, but he is hilarious with this through line that he's just doing this for his wife and kids. He's not even that pressed about them getting away, because he's got a ship that he's going to look to break down and sail, hopefully. Meanwhile, Derek and Celila are trying to find somewhere on the ship to hide, but let's just say they're not any more safe with this guy as they were with Scuzoid. Now, they did formulate a plan where Celila would fight it off and Derek would get the door closed as soon as she could get it to go back. And while that plan worked, they didn't learn too much because, as if door number 1 wasn't bad enough, they go behind door number 2. And here's a character whose name I don't know, but I remember him from saying guilty or innocent in the Transformers movie, along with the Quintessons. However, he tells them that he means them no harm and he wants to get off the ship like they do. And so they agree to help each other. From there, he starts to lay it on thick. He's telling them how he and the Quintessons aren't so bad. He tells them how they've been blamed for this Age of Wrath. If you're going to keep up with the Void Rivals ride, put Age of Wrath in your back pocket. And they finally make it to his ship. But Scuzoid is waiting on the trio. And now he decides to make a deal and tell them that their Quintesson adjacent pal is actually the dangerous one. And so he makes a deal to give them a ship as long as they leave him there. And of course they took the deal. It only made sense. They have a fully functioning ship. Later on, they make plans for what they're going to do. On the way back, they decided that they were going to find a way for each one of them to go back to their separate civilizations and tell them what they've discovered separately, because either one of them bringing the enemy to the other civilization is not going to go over well. And even though she's more of a warrior and she has a harder exterior, Celila does let Derek know that she appreciates him because they would have been stranded and starved to death if her aggression won the day. And that's why it sucks that Celila had to turn her back on Derek. And that is where we end issue number 3 of Void Rivals. Let's continue doing a little catch up with Void Rivals issue number 4. And let's continue to give a creative team check. So last we left off, Derek and Celila were going to make their separate ways back to Argaria and Zertonia respectively, until Celila appeared to stab Derek in the back. And that's where we pick up. We're on Zertonia with their premier, Zelalik, being showered with all kind of compliments. I assume this is a regular thing. Before being alerted that a ship is approaching. And while the ship doesn't look familiar, it did use the secret code, and the premier knows that it's Celila. And we find out that the double cross wasn't exactly a double cross, but she does want to be in charge of the situation when they get to Zertonia. Hopefully, both of them make it out alive after they find out what they find out. And Celila immediately apologizing for having not dispatched of the Agorian, but Zelalik is thankful for the gift that she brought. And though it's not consequential, we do get a quick cameo from Shockwave before we actually see him in Transformers. Now back to the lecture at hand. Celila does let it slip that she doesn't want the Agorian to die, which piques the Premier's interest, and he only has one question. Did you see his face? And without her even responding, he already knew what the answer was, and so now both her and Derek are in the same boat. Or should I say, same sail. And getting back to Zelalik, he goes to these secret quarters so he can communicate with this unseen person and update them on what he knows about Celila and Derek. And it turns out this unseen person is Minister Dulin from Agoria, also the father of Derek. And to show you how important it is for these two leaders who have been working together to prevent the unity of the two races, Minister Dulin says, F them kids. Let's talk about Void Rivals issue number 5. This is not a secret. Creative team check. So we pick up with our main characters, Derek and Celila, in prison, one for being an Agorian on Zertonia, and the other one for showing her face to the Agorian who's now on Zertonia. And they quickly come to the realization that they have a secret that can never get out to the public, so they know that they'll be executed soon. Except for Derek, he'll be tortured first. And after Derek is taken away, we get a visit from strangers bearing breadcrumbs. The one in front is Mistress Veal, and they, along with Celila, apparently, are keepers of the light, and they do the will of Zerta. Who is Zerta? We'll get to that. Anyway, these keepers of the light obviously don't follow Zalalac, and they've come to put Celila back on the path which she was on previously. And apparently that path has trials and tribulations, but will lead to her doing the will of Zerta and doing things no Zertonian has done before. And they give her this unique item that's going to help her in this journey, whatever it may be. Meanwhile, Derek's not having as much fun. As they said earlier, torture. And then it kind of looks like it's going to get worse. Look at these eyes coming out of the shadows. But it turns out he is being rescued, and this little kid is bringing him his helmet, his hand droid, and his jacket. Their destination is underground, where they meet up with some rogue Zertonians, and they want to send Derek on a mission. But the only way he goes on this mission is if they rescue Celila also. There's some back and forth, there's some disagreements, but in the end, they agree to go get Celila. But what is this unique item that she has? Let's look at Void Rivals issue number 6. And here we go with a creative team check. We pick up where we left off in last issue with Celila locked up by herself. And then the Zertonian, who she's familiar with, comes to her rescue. But there's no time for questions. We do have time for Skuzzlewit trying to sell this half Agorian, half Zertonian ship to the Quintessons, which interests them because up until then, they were not sure that Zertonia was real, and they weren't sure that Zerta accomplished her mission, whatever it may be. Back at our prison break, Celila finds out who exactly is behind everything, and it's Derek, and they have a little fun back and forth. It's kind of cute, but don't make wedding plans. We have the Premier finding out and calling the alarm. It's all hands on deck. Unfortunately for Derek and Celila, Ultim, the small child, was playing double agent. Apparently he got blackmailed using his mom, and you can understand. Well, they can understand. What was asked of Derek is that he goes back to Agoria and he meets up with Agorians who are like these Zertonians and not in agreement with the way things are, and to basically deliver a communication link so they can continue communications. But if they're gonna do that, they've got to get away now. And I just like this panel. They make a great team. For now. But ultimately, in order to survive this chase, they decide to go north. And apparently, north isn't the best place for civilians to be. You see, north is a place called the Wasteland. And so one of the Premier's assistants tells him that that's where they've gone, and they are not going to survive out there. But the Premier doesn't trust it because they've escaped before. And in order to prevent the unity, in order to prevent the coming of something called Goliant, he isn't too thrilled, but he's got to revive someone called Proximus. And that was issue number 6 of Void Rivals, and for now, our two heroes are on the run, but whatever Proximus is, it sounds like he's gonna be a handful.